Greetings, manga enthusiasts. Today I am going to be doing one of those rare things where I actually talk about the manga that I've read. I know, such a rare occurrence. I do want to do this more often, I just end up with so many hauls. So originally this video was going to be a January reads review, but I was looking at the manga that I read in January and I was like, I don't remember some of the bits, I'm gonna have to flip through some of these. I was like, nah, that's too much faff. So we've kind of repurposed this video. Instead of January reads, this is February reads, except February isn't over yet. So this is like first half of February reads. I'm hoping since it's more fresh in my head, I'll be able to say a bit more about the volumes themselves, as opposed to... So I had to re-flick through this one to try and remember what was happening, and yeah... Just to warn you, there are probably absolutely definitely going to be spoilers for some of these series. I will say spoiler alert before I actually spoil anything, but because I'm talking about the volumes themselves and not just a general overview of the series, there will absolutely be spoilers, otherwise it's going to be a bit tricky to talk about some of them, but I will put timestamps in the description so you can jump over volumes that you don't want spoilers for. Just quickly before I get into the manga, don't forget to give this video a like, comment and subscribe. It means a lot. Plus, social media is in the description down below. Let's talk some manga. As always, when it comes to stacks of my manga, I will be talking about them alphabetically, because that's how I keep them on my shelves, and it makes it much easier to put them away at the end of this. I like keeping things alphabetically, pretty much. So, the first volume we have is the Abandoned Empress, Volume 1. This is published by Yempress, and I'm fairly sure it's a manhwa, but it is also fully in colour. How neat is that? It's actually really pretty. It's probably one of the prettiest mangas I've read in a while, and the colour really does help that. I thought it might just be a bit much. So it is more expensive because of the colour. I think it was like $14.99, but I have seen some places sell it for like $7.99 or $8.99, which is decent. So the premise of the Abandoned Empress is this girl, woman, both. She has grown up being groomed to be the chosen one, pretty much, and she will be the empress. She'll marry the prince, the emperor, and they'll be very happy and it'll be great. But it turns out that she isn't the chosen one. This girl gets isekai'd from Japan. It turns out she's the chosen one, and this poor girl is sort of cast aside, going, oh, well, we don't need you anymore. But her entire life has been building up and grooming her to love this man and be his partner and support him, and she's like, what do I do? And then everyone starts being mean to her. The prince is a right douche to her, and warning, he rapes her repeatedly, which results in her getting pregnant, and she loses the child. Unfortunately, there's other things that happen where she's not treated nicely. Ultimately, it kind of accumulates to a point where she goes to see the prince, and he informs her that he has had her father killed for... Basically, he does something to threaten the throne and he gets killed. She snaps and stabs the prince, at which point she is executed. Now, you're like, big spoilers. Well, it's not a horrendous spoiler, because the very first thing you see when you start reading the volume is her being killed at the guillotine. It is like page 4. It's not much of a spoiler. We then, half the volume is then the lead up to that, and then the second half of the volume is she has been reincarnated into her 10-year-old self. She's gone back in time, but she's still got all her memories, and she's now got a second chance at life. She can live again and not dedicate her life to the prince, basically, because she knows what's going to happen and that she's not the chosen one and she needs to live her own life. And that is pretty much what's happened so far. She's, as a child again, establishing a wonderful relationship with her father, which is quite nice, and she's met some new friends, and it's been lovely, and I can't wait for another volume. I think we've got another one in like April, maybe? I don't know. And release dates are often American, and that's not when they get to the UK, so I always take them with a pinch of salt. With how long I talked about that one, maybe it's a good thing I've decided to cut this into a smaller, not a full month's read, because we've got like another 20 of these to go. Anyway, next we have Apothecary Diaries Volume 4. Now, Apothecary Diaries, banging. So in this one, we continue having some wonderful drama, there's some mysteries, the mysteries get solved, and I just really like seeing the mysteries and how they get solved. There was a whole bunch of, spoiler, stuff around, I say spoiler and then I'm like, what's the word again? What's the word? Basically, there's a mystery around one of the two of the consorts, sort of. There was some mystery going on in a previous one with some food tampering, and it's kind of continued on to this one, where we did find out how the culprit was and why, and it was so sad, the reasoning why, and yeah, this is such a good read. I actually have volumes 6 and 7 on pre-order, but not volume 5, because Blackwell's had them £6.96, which is slightly cheaper than 3 for 2, and I'll always pre-order something if it's cheaper than 3 for 2. By the Grace of the Gods, Volume 4. This series I find really interesting and also slightly dull at the same time. It's an isekai. It's a very mid-isekai, in my opinion. There are some bits of it that I really like, and some bits of it that just seem to drag on. Particularly at the beginning of this volume, there was a whole bunch of dungeon crawling, and I just found like it just dragged a little bit. And then there were some other neat bits where he used some of his 6 skills and did neat shit and stuff, and it was fun to watch everyone go, oh my gosh. And there's like a whole bit where he introduces waterproof clothing and everyone just loses their mind and like, we'll make a fortune off this. There was also a really quite badass fight scene towards the end that was like, except I don't like how he reacted. He was like, at the end after the fight scene, I don't like this sort of person. I don't want to be this sort of angry person. I need to go and discover who I am. It's like, what? Oh my gosh. You did it for good reason. Stop that. Don't do that. Oh, it annoyed me quite a bit. Chronicles of an Aristocrat Reborn in Another World, Volume 3. I read this last night, actually, and this series is strange. I found Volume 1 quite mid. I thought it was like, yeah, this is an average isekai, it's fine. And then Volumes 2 and 3 I've actually really enjoyed quite a bit. And it's strange because it's an isekai. He does have a harem in it, but I almost don't mind as much because he himself isn't as much of a perv. Does that make it okay? Basically, he's ended up in an engagement with other nobility, and it's more like, I mean, it's not like it's okay, but it's like just an arranged marriage. It's not like he wants a splattering of women because he's a disgusting degenerate. He's just chilling. He's trying to live his noble life, and all these girls are like, I want to marry you one day, and then their parents are like, oh, alright then. And he's like, what just happened? One thing I really like in isekais is when they start trying to introduce things from their past lives, so life on Earth, to this fantasy world, and that's one of the things that's happening in this series, and it makes me so happy. It's so silly, and seeing people go crazy over things that we just consider so basic in this life. Like, he produces some clear glass, and you don't really get clear glass in the world that he's in, and everyone just loses their minds, and it's so much fun. It's so silly and funny, and I love that sort of things in isekai. There's quite a few other ones that do it, like Ascendance of a Bookworm. I really like it in that. There was a bit towards the end of this volume where I kind of went a bit, okay, we're starting to teeter towards not quite alright. Let's see how it plays out in later volumes. But yeah, this has actually surprised me because not many series improve over time. Quite a few, either they'll stay steady or they'll go down, but not many go up. And this is one for me that has definitely gone up. Dragon Knight's Beloved Volume 1. So I found the beginning of this pretty slow, and it did start to improve the further in I went. One of my main qualms with this is I found the main lead, I found her quite ditzy, and it almost started to verge on the point of, you're just a bit annoying now, come on, sure, no one can be quite that unaware of what's happening. Maybe it was just me. Basic premise of this series is our main character, girl here, has worked as a maid for all her life, and she's decided that now she's of age, she wants to try and spread her wings and go work somewhere else. And this knight who works all the night, there's like dragon knights, and the knights have dragon pairings that you like bond with, I think. This dragon knight who is like one of the best ones there, and his dragon loves her, and he's like, well, you can come work at my house. And she's like, okay, maybe I'll go take a look. It turns out his house is like, he's a baron or a marquis, or he's a noble and with a big house, and she goes works there, but she has to pretend that she's his lover. I think that was the premise of it. I did start to get a bit confused at one point, but I'm fairly sure that was the premise. So she is working there as a maid, but also pretending to be his lover to help, I think, path off other suitors. She also has some sort of innate ability to be liked by dragons, which isn't that common, and his estate is near where the dragons live, so he's hoping she can also help out with that. I am looking forward to picking up a second volume, because I'm kind of hoping the story is going to move a bit more now, even if it's more romance, more action. I don't really mind which. This seemed to have a predominantly be setting up and establishing who everyone was and what's happening, and I think that's why I struggled at the beginning, because there was just so much like, this is so and such, they're so and such, So let's see what volume 2 brings. So next we have Eden 014. I will try and keep this spoiler free if I can, but pretty much we're continuing with the arc we were on. This volume was almost entirely fight scenes. I really, really like the new ability that Rebecca has. I think it's super neat, and her trying it out was just really funny to watch. I can't wait to see her use it more in battle. I also liked some of the new people that seemed to appear. Well, they weren't new people, but we've not seen them in action yet, and it was super cool. It ended off with them being like, is it like, justice will be served? What did they say? In the name of justice. Like, ooh, can't wait to read more. 15, only a couple of weeks away. They're releasing really quick. I think there was a big gap where they couldn't, there was a delayed in release, and now they're kind of catching up again. So, hype. Next we have 3 FAKKU volumes. I've taken the dust covers off, and they've got this like really neat rainbow or different quite prominent colours underneath, which is really neat. I'm really hoping that I can like build a rainbow if that's not too weird. So we have, and I've tried to censor as much as I can. I think that's not too bad. It's a bit on the spines, which is annoying. So I read 3. I read My Lover is a Vampire, Sensual Days, and Netoraserare. My Lover is a Vampire was fine. Just teenage boy meets a vampire and they start dating and having lots of cuddles together. It did get a bit weird when her mum got involved though. There was also a whole bunch of like one-shots at the end, which were very strange and seemed to revolve around older women teaching younger boys. They were a bit weird. Next we had Sensual Days, which was actually the first FAKKU volume I read like ever, and I feel like this kind of was a strange one to start with, because every chapter is a different story. There's some like follow-up chapters that are like a page long, so I'm not sure they really count, but every chapter was a different story, and some of them were actually kind of wholesome, minus all the cuddling. This was probably like the most normal one that I read. It was, yeah, kind of sweet. Some of them were sweet, some of them were less sweet. Netoraserare. So I feel like I did myself a disservice where I didn't know what this meant, and I learned the hard way what what that means, which I didn't know what it meant, and I was reading it and I was like, this is really weird. That's such a strange thing. So I had picked these up blind because of course I did. So yeah, I have another volume that starts off with the same word, and I was like, why are there two series that begin with the same word? What a coincidence. And then no, I discovered what the word meant, and I'm like, oh. I don't really want to go into too much of describing what the word means, but the premise of this one was basically husband and wife. Wife really wants a baby, but husband is unable to cuddle her, and is only able to enjoy cuddling if she's cuddling someone else. And he watches them cuddle, and it's like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Oh no. The hero laughs while walking the path of vengeance a second time, volume 1. I've got a lot of volume 1s in this. I've gone wild for volume 1s in January, and February is like me catching up with them. This is an isekai. It's probably one of the more brutal isekais that I have read. It is not for the faint of heart. There are a lot of disturbing things that happen really quickly in the volume. Pretty much it starts off with our dude up here dying because the princess of the kingdom he'd been isekai'd into kills him along with a bunch of guards, and he's been isekai'd for quite a few years now. He's like saved them and done things to help the kingdom, and they betray them, they kill him, they're like, well, we don't need you anymore, you're gone. I can't quite remember exactly, but something along those lines. And as he dies, he hears a voice saying like, trial mode complete, time for like the real thing. And he wakes up just as he'd been isekai'd into the kingdom with all his memories, remembering that the princess had tortured and killed him, and he is immediately greeted by the princess and all the guards and everyone that did him dirty, and he's pissed. He is not happy in the slightest, and shows them he's not happy, except they're all very confused because obviously in this timeline that's not happened, but he remembers and does some not very nice things to them. I would absolutely warn people about going into blind if you're squeamish or don't like reading torture. I feel like I've sold it like to be a bit more dramatic than it is, but it was like, even I was really going, ooh, ah, ooh. It reminded me like a more aggressive, dramatic Rising of Shield hero, because he gets done dirty and gets angry and wants revenge, except the revenge he gets is like nowhere in comparison to this at all. So I actually really enjoyed it, and I'm very excited to read volume 2 because it was just, it really gripped me, it dragged me in. I want to see what happens. Did people understand why they're doing this, or is he just like, don't care, I just want to ravage revenge across everyone, and then I don't care what happens to me? I don't know, but oh, I want to read it. I Hear the Sunspot volume 1. I have had this on my shelf for a couple of months now. I got it for Christmas or over December, and I knew sort of the premise. I knew it was a slice of life, BL, cutesy sweet sort of deal, and yeah, it was exactly that, and it was actually more sweet than I expected it to be. I like how they portrayed the dude with a disability, because a lot of people around him were spoilers, though I feel like volume 1s are often fair game, though I suppose technically it's a one-shot, but it has other volumes. Yeah, anyway, spoilers for this volume if you're bothered. I feel like the guy with the disability was shown it was really interesting to read because he has a hearing disability, but he isn't completely deaf. He just struggles a bit with hearing, and sometimes he reads lips to help aid him. But I found there were a lot of instances they showed where like people would walk up to him and go, "Oh, you've got a hearing disability," and then start trying to talk to him in sign language. But he's like, "But I don't know sign language." And just these people were assuming, "Oh, you're deaf, you must be able to speak sign language." And it's like, no, I can't. Or there was a scene where he was walking down, taking the rubbish out at school, and the girl ran up and was like, "Oh, I can do that, I can help you." And it's like, no, I can do it myself. I can't hear, I can still take out the bin. And I feel like it was really interesting to read because it was like a situation where people were trying to help and be kind, but no one asked him what he wanted, what would help him with his disability. People were assuming how they could help him, and I feel that's almost worse than people just being a douche. I mean, it's not people being a douche, it's just not nice, but like they were trying to be kind, so almost speaking out about it just feels wrong. Like you're being the douche, even though they're being presumptuous, and it just was really good to read. And like I got angry on his behalf, and it was like, God damn, just ask him what he wants. Do you want to do this? Can you speak sign language? How do you want me to speak to you? And he's like, just speak a little slower, pronunciate, I'll be fine. Okay. How hard is that? Apparently for quite a few people. Oh, and then this one dude comes like falling in literally, and he just is like, what can I do? Should I do this? And he's like, yeah. And it's like, oh, it's so sweet. And what I love about the pairing in this is it doesn't feel like it's a BL for the sake of being a BL. It just feels like two people have clicked and they like each other and they're spending time together. It doesn't matter boy, girl or anything. It's just these two people are compatible and they're just running with it. And I don't know, it just really, I liked it. I enjoyed it. And I'm happy I have Theory of Happiness. I can continue reading that. I also have Limit 1 and 3. I don't have Volume 2 because that was out of stock when it was picked up. But I hope to pick that one up soon too as well, though I haven't actually seen these in store. I might have to rely on finding it online. But yes, goodness, I spoke a lot about that, but I enjoyed it, and that was just everything I felt about it. Kaiju No. 8. This is actually a volume I'm giving away as part of my giveaway, if it's still running, because it closes on March the 1st. I'm not sure if this is going to go up before March the 1st, 2022. I don't know. I actually went into this one pretty blind. I didn't know anything about it, and it definitely made reading it better, hence why I'm really wary about saying anything about it, actually. So maybe I'll just go spoiler. Jump ahead if you don't want spoilers for this volume. Good, they're gone. So pretty much the premise of this is we have a guy who wants to be someone who can beat up kaiju, but he keeps failing the exam, and instead he works as kaiju disposal, where they clear up and they take away the kaiju bodies. Then through a series of accidents, I can't quite remember, I have to flip through a series of things that happen, he kind of becomes a half kaiju human person, and that's him in his kaiju form on the front. He doesn't understand what's happening, and that's a lot of what volume 1 was. Oh sorry, no, that's not true. The second half was like him trying to retake the exam, but he doesn't want to use his kaiju ability because that feels like cheating, and also he'd probably be hunted down and experimented on, so he was trying to hide it. So he was doing this training fighting thing, and things have gone a bit wrong towards the end where we wrap this up. Can't wait for volume 2, but volume 1 took so long to get to the UK. I'm assuming it's going to be like 2-3 months after volume 2 comes out in the US that it'll get over here, and I don't know if volume 2 is out in the US yet, so I have a while to wait. Let this grieving soul retire. Woe is the weakling who leads the strongest party. Volume 1. Premise of this is this guy here is a bit shit. He's very much a weakling. Him and his group of friends, they all decided they're going to become treasure hunters, and over the years they've become like some of the strongest treasure hunters there are out there in the country. However, he just can't seem to keep up, and at one point he's talking to them and he's like, nah, I think I need to leave the party. I can't keep up. I'm slowing you guys down. I wish you all the best of luck. And all his friends like, no, you can just like become the leader and like manage the admin shit and stuff. And he's like, what? Are you sure? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, and then they all just stop planning it for him. And that's now what he does. He's like super lazy and no one believes he's this leader of this super powerful group, and he just kind of wants to stop doing it, but he can't step away sort of deal. For me, it was a definite sort of mid-series, like 6. I think is what I gave it out of 10. Fairly sure a light novel released at the same time. I think I saw both of them side by side on the shelves in Forbidden Planet. It actually reminds me quite a lot of the Psycho Revenge Isekais that I read. The covers look really similar. But yeah, this was probably not, this isn't something I'd necessarily rave about. It might pick up later on, because some series where I've read that are kind of like this, so I read volume 1, I'm like, I'm just not invested in the premise, and then continuing on, I did enjoy it more, and I'm kind of hoping that happens with this one. Living Room Matsunaga-san Volume 9. So yeah, there'll be spoilers for this one. Lots of spoilers. Spoilers. So in Volume 8, they both established that they got the feels for each other. It goes both ways. Can't remember how big the age gap is. I think it's like 10 years. She's like 16, right? And is he old? I swear he has a birthday. How old does he turn? Okay, no, he doesn't have a birthday. I don't know why I imagined a birthday. I think he's had a birthday in the series. It just wasn't in this volume. But I do quite like this, even though it's a age gap where one of them's a minor. I do still enjoy it. I've enjoyed the build up to it a bit, but I'm with this volume, I'm starting to feel like I'm turning a bit again. It was like the issues I've had with Dreaming Sun, where it was fine at the beginning and then everyone was like just sort of ignoring the age gap and being like, just go for it. I was fine up until when they said they both had feelings, it's like, that's fine. Okay, cool. And he was like, well, wait till you graduate. It's like, okay, cool, that's fine. And then there are some parts in this volume where like he just kind of forgets or ignores that, and then he just like gives her a smooch or something. It's like, Matsunaga, that's not waiting. Kind of feeling like I should do a video on age gap romances, because I think there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk about, and it's not necessarily specific to this volume, so I might do that actually. But yeah, I am enjoying it. I want to see how it wraps up now. There's only a couple more volumes, 11 volumes I think, and I want to see what happens. A Man and His Cat Volume 5. Now I think this might be my least favourite volume so far, and like, it's not because it's bad, but I've enjoyed A Man and His Cat because it's just so sweet and lovely, and spoiler alert. And in this volume there's just quite a bit of action where what's the cat? Fukumaru's escaped and gotten lost, and the dude Kanda is like all worried. He can't find him. He's very worried. And then we see some scenes with Fukumaru and it's not going well, and he's getting thinner and he's scared, and it just made me feel a bit sad. And like, this is like one of my feel-good series. I didn't want to feel sad from it, and I think that's why I didn't like it. It wasn't like it was a bad volume. I did enjoy reading it. It was nice and quick to read because the story flowed, but it just wasn't what I wanted from the series, or it wasn't what I was expecting from the series, which isn't necessarily, it's not saying it's bad, but yeah, it just, spoiler alert, he does find him, and the reunion's super lovely and made me teary, but I like how almost sickeningly nice and cozy it is, because it's a comfort series at this point. Otherworldly Izakaya Nobu Volume 2. This is just such a sweet, lovely series. It was one of my favourite new series reads of 2021. Nearly said 2010 for some reason. 2021. And it's got isekai, it's got food, it's just all my favourite bits, and every chapter is just super lovely. Everyone's really lovely, really nice, and it just makes me happy to read. And it just makes me really sad that it's quite an expensive series because it's Udon Entertainment. I have 1, 2, and 3, so I can read another one. Basically, we kind of are in this fantasy town, and there is a strange cafe, tavern, but I can't remember what they call it, food plate establishment, Izakaya, which is this one, which is a cafe that one door, the front door opens into this fantasy world and the back door opens into Japan. So the owner, chef, one person, and the waitress are from Japan, and they just sort of, all of their clientele are from this fantasy town who aren't familiar with Japanese cuisine. They predominantly, it's like meat and potatoes, I think is the gist of it, and they're just surprised by the sort of food that they produce, and because it's really good quality, and it's just lovely, and it's like every chapter revolves around making a food to up someone's day, and yes, everything about it's lovely. Persephone, Hades Torment, and I think it's a one-shot. I'm still doubting. I don't actually think this is manga. I was duped because it's printed by Seven Seas and it was in the manga section in Forbidden Planet and it was plastic wrapped, so I was like, ooh. And then, yeah, I think I was duped. It took me like 5 minutes to read. It did not take me long at all, because we had a whole bunch of pages that were like, I mean, there's not a huge amount there, and then got a whole bunch like that. There we go, 2 pages, and then we got a bit more, and yeah. It's kind of just a romantic telling of Hades and Persephone, which, yeah, and it was fine. It was an enjoyable read. I quite liked mythology and that sort of thing, so always happy to read it, but yeah, it was a bit strange. There was some scenes towards the end that explain the plastic wrap, but I'm just honestly a bit confused. Because I don't think it's a manga. It's not a manga. Rent a Girlfriend Volume 9. I feel like there's 2 types of fans for Rent a Girlfriend. The ones that really, really love it and the ones that are like, when will it end? And I've got to be honest, I am more in the latter camp than the former. It just feels a bit like, really? There's still like nothing happening? I mean, I kind of get why, but also it is very repetitive at this point. I read the spin-off Rent a Really Shy Girlfriend last month and I really enjoyed that one. I enjoyed that one more than this one, but I'm glad I've read this one so it established the story for the spin-off. I think the last time I checked there was like 20 something volumes of this in Japan, and I'm like, how? Are they still won't they at that point? What? How does he still have money? I know he has a job, but I think the biggest selling point for this series for me still is the artwork is super pretty. The artist is really good at drawing women's clothing, and it is just really nice, pretty to watch, read. And the double page spreads are always on point. They're banging. They're really good. Are there any in this one? This is kind of towards the end of the volume, so it might be a bit of a spoiler, but also maybe not. But so that like is one of the ones I could find really quickly, and I just think it looks really nice. But it's definitely a series I'm not rushing to keep up to date with. In fact, I've had volume 9 on my shelf for about a month and a half now, and I've only just gotten around to reading it. In fact, I think 10 might be out now, and 11. I know what? I have no idea. Rosen Blood Volume 1. Now, I sure hope I don't upset people with my opinions on this. But there's going to be lots of spoilers for this, and I'm going to be very blunt. Pretty much, I thought it was a bit shit. I felt like I was reading really weird fan fiction. So, start from the beginning. I don't think the premise is bad. I quite like the premise. In fact, though, that was actually one of my issues with it. I don't know how many of you who've read this are familiar with the anime, or is it visual novels of Diabolic Lovers, because this pretty much felt like a slight retelling of that, and I was a bit surprised at the beginning, because it was like reading the back and then the first few pages, like, okay, this is really similar. Okay, it's still similar. It's okay. Is it the same story? My other issue with it, which was the main problem I had with the volume, was I just found some of the sentences were written so strangely. The way that the words were structured, it just made it hard and confusing to read. Like, I don't understand like why they chose that combination of words to convey the point they were trying to get across. And it could just be I'm not understanding it, but I read like a whole splattering of different types of manga and genres aimed at different ages and age ranges. I like a volume or two a day, and this is probably the one that I've stumbled over and gotten confused the most with in like the past number of months. There were just some sentences where I was reading it and it was meant to be a serious sentence, but I was like, it actually made me giggle just at this strange phrasing. I'm gonna find one. Now, I understand I could just be being strangely picky, but it just was just so strange. Like this one, my sister, my only living relative, died. Why would you phrase it as your only living relative died? Why would you say that they're living just to immediately say they're dead? I stared at this sentence for a good 20 minutes going, that's just so strange. I even asked my partner going, does this sentence like read right to you? And it was like, no, but I don't know why. And there are a couple of others like that. And it just, I don't know why. I don't know why, because I did want to like it. And that makes me sad. I am actually sad that I read it and I was like, eh. I will keep reading it. I hope it will improve, in my opinion. Rozi in the Labyrinth, Volume 1. This was actually just pretty chill, pretty sweet. It was like a fantasy slice of life, where this group of people live in this labyrinth, and the labyrinth is like, you can't escape the labyrinth, and there's some strange things that happen with the labyrinth, and that was kind of it. She lives with... Rozi is the main little girl here at the front with the pink hair, but it was just pretty cute to read. It was nice to read. It was quite just lovely. There wasn't really too much intense story to it. Maybe it was just because it was a volume 1, but I'm struggling to like establish more of the story other than they're in a labyrinth and the labyrinth's a bit strange and they kind of just live there without just like outright describing the chapters. I think there's a few more volumes that are out for this series, so I wonder if there'll be more established story or it'll continue on this sort of thread. Skip and Loafer Volume 1. This is a series that I'm really glad I went into blind. If you want to go into it blind, then skip over to the next volume. Go, go, go! This series gave me like intense Komi vibes, except the main character doesn't have a communication disorder. She just is a little bit oblivious to social interactions, pretty much. She's sort of a country girl who has done well enough grade-wise to start attending a more prestigious school in Tokyo. So she moves to live with her aunt, because everyone apparently has an aunt or uncle who lives in the center of Tokyo. And she goes to live with her and starts attending the school. She's very much book smarts, but not entirely street smarts. And she kind of just sort of accidentally starts making friends with like the cool people, but the cool people are also just pretty nice. And you know, it was just so sweet and lovely. And I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was just a high school romance. That wasn't quite what it was, but it was a little bit. There are 3 volumes out. They didn't have 2 and 3 when I last went shopping. I'm hoping they will next time I go, because oh my gosh, I will be grabbing them so fast. It was just really sweet, and I loved it. And I know that it has rainbow spines. Those Not So Sweet Boys, Volume 5. Spoiler alert! So at the end of Volume 4, we learned that the dude here actually got the feels for her as well as her getting the feels for him. And at the beginning of the volume, we have them both confess to each other, and then they decide to start dating. How sweet, how lovely. Turns out his family, grandmother, doesn't necessarily approve of him dating a commoner. Basically, he comes from money, and it gets a bit heated. And I think I've just described the entire volume. It's pretty much this. There's events, there's a party, there's a date, but that's pretty much the premise of the volume. And then something happens at the end which leaves us on a cliffhanger, and I need Volume 6, but I don't think it comes out till April or late March. I don't know, depending on where I look, I get a different date, which is very bothersome. I'm enjoying this romance quite a bit. This is filling a hole that I've had with high school romances. I need a bit of drama. Toilet Bound Hanako-kun Volume 12. This volume, spoiler alert, this volume wrapped up the current arc with School Mystery number 4. We finally escaped her painting, and all is well-ish, sort of. And you know what, I've really enjoyed this arc. I really liked School Mystery number 4. I liked her backstory and how she became the mystery. It was really, really heartbreaking. Volume 11, where we got all of her backstory, is probably my favourite volume so far. But I like that the arc ended and how it ended, and now we had a few like interlude chapters, and now we're starting the next arc where we seem to be being introduced to the final school mystery who we've not met yet. Hype! Toilet Bound Hanako-kun seems to be a series that is just continuously hard to find, and I'm so glad I started reading it when I did. I started picking it up, I think, just as Volume 3 came out, and staying on top of picking it up has been relatively easy, thankfully. So I do really feel for people who are trying to start the series now, where it's hard to find the volumes. I've seen a lot of Volume 1s appear, and like Volumes 2 and 3 have definitely appeared in restock. It might have improved since I last looked, but because I have the volumes, I don't generally look at stock levels of the older ones. But if you're keeping up to date with this one, it's definitely not too hard to pick up. I've picked up most of my recent volumes in store. They get a whole bunch like for a month, I'd say, after the volume releases, and then it kind of dwindles. I don't know when 13 is out. Blackwell's kind of just didn't even have it available. It just sort of said notify me, which is really strange when it's a pre-order. Usually means it's going to get delayed. So we'll see. Trapped in a dating sim, the world of Otome games is tough for mobs, Volume 3. This has just been quite neat and funny. It is an isekai, unsurprisingly, into an Otome game, and in the Otome game world, it is a very matriarchal society. So the main character that's been isekai'd is a dude, and he does not have anywhere near the same standard of living that, say, women do. He's treated very much like dirt, and it's such a strange, like, you'd expect with a title like that it to be heavily romance-y series, but it's really not at all. Well, it is a bit, it is a little bit, that's a lie. It's very, there's a lot of like mechas. So the premise of the Otome game was it was like a dating sim and like a real-time strategy game, which I think you do actually get some of those for realsies, and kind of like Fire Emblem. You have to like be nice to people and up friendship levels and stuff, but also you go out and fight and stuff. It was this, the game in which he's gone into is kind of like that, except there's a lot of mechas and stuff. So there's a lot of focus around fights and abilities and such. In this volume, he managed to piss off like a lot of noble dudes and come out victorious by at the beginning of the volume. So a lot of people really angry at him, but also being nice to him, I think. This is actually another series where I think it's improved the more I've read it. Volume 1 was like, oh, okay, this is an interesting premise, let's see what happens. And then in Volume 2, he kind of just went, I don't give a shit, and started just like picking fights with these dudes, and it was like, and then there was just a mecha fight, and it was like, neat. There is a light novel, and the light novel volumes are hella chunky. Some of the chunkier light novels in the house, though they technically belong to my partner. I actually got him the first light novel for Christmas, and I remember he opened it and he looked at it and he was like, why have you got me a romance light novel? And I was like, no, trust me. And then he read it and he was like, it had mechas, and I was like, right? There is romance in it, don't get me wrong, it's not like void of romance, but it's definitely not really the focus. Vampire Dormitory Volumes 1 and 2. Speaking of trash vampire romance, this is one I actually did enjoy. What makes the story writing better for me than Rosen Blood? You know what? I don't know, because the story isn't particularly more groundbreaking than Rosen Blood, but I don't know, I enjoyed it more. Pretty much it reminds me of like Uran, High School Host Club, where our main character, lady here, is pretending to not be a lady. She's pretending to be a boy because she's sort of living on the streets and she's bothered less if she's a boy. And this vampire comes along, except we don't know he's a vampire straight away, and he's like, if you live as my thrall and let me drink your blood, then I'll provide a roof over your head and feed you. And of course she's like, yeah, thanks, I'll take that. They've kind of started falling for each other, but he still thinks she's a dude and she thinks he is a chosen soulmate that isn't her, and that's pretty much the premise so far. I wouldn't like scream like it's a good series, but I'm really enjoying it. And yeah, I don't know why I'm enjoying this more than Rosen Blood, but I don't know. I have to put some proper thought into that. The problem with me doing these reviews, I don't write scripts or anything, I just wing it, and I'm like, I look at the volume and go, oh yeah, this is what I thought of it. I don't put much deeper thought into it than that. But I have been enjoying this. This is like what if I was thinking I want to read a vampire romance, this is the sort of thing I'd want to read. Also, Spine's hella pretty. I know volume 3 is like an aqua teal kind of colour, minty colour, and that is like one of my favourite colours. So I'm really excited to get that volume just so I can see how nice it looks. We are on our final volume. Go team! We have done really well. My poor throat. Next we have Young Ladies Don't Play Fighting Games, Volume 1. Premise of this story is our main characters attend a prestigious girls-only school where like everyone, you're training to be a fancy lady, a nice lady, dainty, all that crap. And things like video games are banned. And our character that we're following from the beginning of the story, she isn't particularly, noble's not the right word, higher class than most of the other ladies there. She's sort of a common class who's managed to get a scholarship on something. I can't quite remember, or they haven't said. Again, we'll see. I might have to go check. But she's wandering around an empty annex of the school, and she hears all this noise, and she comes across like the most popular girl that everyone loves, who's this one right here. She is playing a like arcade fighting game, like a console thing on her lap, and she kind of joins in ish, and she's like, but young ladies shouldn't be doing this, and the other girl's like, but I feel something when I play this game, I don't know. But they kind of like sneak away and play games a whole bunch, but then they get caught and they get into trouble. Well, they don't get caught. Someone walks by, hears them, but they manage to get away, but they kind of break a window in the process, so they're trying to figure out who it was, and they're kind of getting closer, so spending more time together, and it seems to be getting really sweet. But it's just they're mostly playing fighting games and being really intense about fighting games, and it's just really funny and silly. Well, there we have it. All manga I've read in like the first half of February, and that's still like an hour. Maybe breaking them down would be a good idea, or maybe just because I don't think I'll be able to do it every other week or weekly or whatever, I just talk about the ones I've read recently, and I want to do more videos where I talk about specific topics, maybe a more intense video about comparing vampire romances maybe, or I want to do one where I talk about age gaps in romance manga. If you've liked this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It means a huge amount to see all your support. Don't forget to check out my social medias linked down below. Otherwise, have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye!